Hey everybody, so I wanted to just share a quick tutorial that should probably help you and maybe clarify a few things about your project this week. First of all, I'm going to set up my file directory, make sure that you'll have a good file directory for those who aren't as familiar with After Effects. It is a referential program, so it references where things are in your folder structure, and if you move them, it gets confused. So in my Haiku 1, I'm going to make a new folder. I'll call this vid assets. I'll call this AE, and PR for Premiere, and then renders. And I'll move my footage that I have into my vid assets. I did get these, I just recorded these from online. You should be taking your own footage. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and import all my footage into After Effects. And I'm going to start by making a new composition, and I'll just call this shot 1. And I'm also going to make sure I save as, and I will save this in my AE folder. So let's bring down my footage and take a look at it. So I have some footage here. Is it not showing up? Okay, that was weird. Not sure. But I have footage here, and it's clouds. I bring it down, and just quickly going through some composition setup. In order to set up the length of my timeline, right now it's 10 seconds. I can change that whenever I make a new composition. I can make a new composition here. That's going to create a new one. Or down here with this little hamburger, I can click on that, composition settings, and I can use this to adjust the time length if I want to make it longer. And I suppose we should actually take this to 29.97 frames a second since we're working in video. That is the standard for video, and 24 is more of the standard for animation. Honestly, it's not going to be a huge difference, but we'll try and make proper practice. So I'll hit OK. And I can hit, if I go into the contents of my video, you can see I have things down here for position, scale, rotation, and those are all good things to know. I can scale up my clouds and it will take up the entire screen. And that'll be good because I want to use the clouds as my Luma Matte. So remember what I was telling you, that if we're trying to have like very clear, distinct shapes, it's nice to have contrast. So for example, recording something that's backlit is a good way to get clear contrast. Also, just these clouds in the sky, I thought that they would be pretty good to use as a Luma layer because we can get some nice contrast. So I'm going to drop in threshold onto my clouds, and not exactly what I want. So let's turn off the sound. So I think I might be able to get it a little bit better. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a color correction tool that's very good. It has almost every tool inside of it. It's called Lumetri Lumetri Color is one that I have started using. And I'm actually going to take Lumetri Color and put it above. And now I want to come down into my curves, and let's turn off my threshold. I can turn it on and off right there. I'm going to just up the contrast a lot so I get more of my clouds. Up the brightness. We can do contrast, up that a little. Alright, so let's see how that looks. If I come back down now to my threshold, turn it back on. Okay, so now it's way off. I need to adjust this a little. That looks good. Now let's see, for example, what happens when I drag this underneath. See, it's different. So the order of these things does matter. Whatever is on top is what's going to happen first. So first we're getting the color correction, and then we're getting the threshold, and that's important because we want to make sure that we capture that contrast. So this is pretty nice. I can use this to start off with, and I have my footage. I have some whales here, and I also just have some other underwater footage that I'll scroll down a little. And so let's turn on the Luma Matte and just kind of see what it looks like. So I'm going to go to Underwater 2, and if this button has not been pressed down here, you need to press that so you can get to your track mats and Luma Matte. So what should happen, I'm going to fill in the white areas because the light is hitting that area. I'm going to fill it with the image that is directly beneath the clouds, and I believe that's the it's either the whales or the coral reef. We'll see. Okay, so this should be the whales, yes. So Underwater 2 is the whales. So I want to scale that up a little. Let's switch them. I think it will be a better matte if I switch and have the whales on the very bottom and have the coral on the top. So scale that up, scale that up. All right, let's turn on my alpha matte, or my Luma Matte, I'm sorry. So now I get some of this coral and I have the whales in the background. So it's kind of interesting. Maybe it's not exactly clear what these shapes are, these cloud forms. Maybe whenever we're seeing this, we don't actually know, but that's okay. We're not necessarily as totally concerned about like clearly defined what this shape is, and we're more interested in how can we make the footage interact with itself, and how are just the artistic uses of all of our Luma Matte. Not necessarily, we don't need to know that it's clouds because we can make inferences, and it creates discussion just with the shape itself. So I do want to point out, so you all might see this and you might think that that's not very appealing to kind of have this digitized footage right here. And I understand it kind of looks a little low quality, I guess. So we can apply something called a simple choker. And this is going to basically take our matte and shrink it in so that it kind of just cuts off the very edge of all of this material around here. But we in order to do this, we actually need to do something called pre-composing. So right now, we actually need to keep in mind that this top layer is still a rectangle. It's still, the video footage is still all of this, and we don't actually have any alpha on this. And down here on this one, this is also still a rectangle. We don't actually have an alpha on this layer. The alpha is coming from the interaction between the two. And by alpha, I mean transparency. So there is no transparency yet. The transparency is here because the way these two pieces interact together. So if I try and drop my simple choker onto clouds 1, and then I drag the choke up, you can see what it's starting to do. It's just kind of like cutting off the edge down at the bottom and at the top, and kind of rounds it at the sides. The rest of it is you can't see because it's beyond the composition. So same thing, if I were to put the simple choker onto my footage right here, again, because it's just a rectangle, all it does is sort of like cut off the rectangle edge. It brings in the edge of our rectangle. So I need to have that alpha sort of baked in, and so what I can do is I can pre-compose these two layers. We select our two layers, we right click, and we go down to pre-compose. And I'm going to call this Coral Reef. Coral Reef Matte, I guess. It's nice to have a distinction. So now when I go back to my project panel, you can see Coral Reef Matte has been added here. And shot 1, Coral Reef Matte is now my new composition that I have added. And of course, if I click through on Coral Reef Matte, if I double click down here, it takes us down to our two pieces of footage that we had before, the clouds and the underwater. So now, say we accidentally deleted that and we only had that footage, I can come up here, drop my Coral Reef Matte right back on top, and it's back here. And now if we put on simple choker, let's look at what happens. Okay, so you can see that kind of like edge that we had that was so hard before and kind of like jagged, it's becoming a little bit smoother. You can see that up here especially. I think that was one area in which right around here, it's more blobby now. So we don't have as much of that pure digitization look. It appears a bit more smooth. It's kind of got a few jagged edges, but it looks very different. And of course we could keep taking this up and we could really kind of like cut into our matte, and we're losing a little bit of what the shape is entirely, but again, maybe that's not quite as important. So I'm gonna make a new composition. I can do that by hitting create new composition. 10 seconds is fine. 1920 by 1080, shot 2 I'll say, and I'm gonna start again. I'm gonna bring my clouds back down, scale it up a little, and I will bring in my whales. So whales are underneath, and I'm hitting S on the keyboard in order to bring up scale. You can hit P to bring up position, and of course R to bring up rotation. So scale, so this time I want to keep my clouds, but I want to get rid of this blue part, and I want to have the whales behind it where the blue is. And there's a couple ways to do this, but if we're sticking with our Luma Matte way and using threshold for right now, let's take a look at how we can use that. So I'm gonna apply threshold to my clouds, and again let's go back and also add lumetry bump that above. And I'll just this time kind of adjust the contrast, see if I can get that. Okay, it looks like I do need to go down into curves to help it out. That really bumps it up. Okay, that's good. And now let's turn that back on. We get a lot more information. So I want to use this to cut out my clouds. So what I can do is I can duplicate this layer here, Command D, and I'm gonna drop down to the original layer because all of this information in here is just copied. So I'm gonna drop down to the layer below and delete both of those. So now no information is on our clouds, it's back to normal. But the white is really just tracing where our clouds are. And so I can use my Luma Matte and I get the clouds whenever I turn that on. And so we could do the same thing. Let's pre-compose these. So right click, pre-compose, and I'm gonna say clouds map. And I'll come back up to here to simple choker. And bring this in. And again, it's not perfect, but we can use it for what it is. We're just exploring how to approach these things. And yeah, so now what I would suggest is, okay, I have two shots that I want to use, and I would suggest rendering them both out into media encoder and then taking them into Premiere and sequencing them in Premiere. You could, of course, just sequence them in After Effects. You could make a comp that says full comp. And then I could bring in my shot 1, followed by shot 2. And I want to go back into the composition settings because I need more time on my timeline. So composition settings. And I'll say 30 seconds. So then we have these two shots in order. And of course I could add a third as well and I could render them out. But After Effects, it goes slow with video, and so Premiere really is probably built better for actually sequencing video. You can, if you want to, drop this down from full to quarter, and so the quality of our video right here is a lot less right now, but when we play it, it will go much faster. You can tell. So really what some of this comes down to is getting this matte and getting the alpha that you want really comes down to, at least in this circumstance, how we're doing it right now, it comes down to this right here, this threshold, and really just getting the areas that you want that are black and white. And we're going to start to explore some more advanced ways to refine this and really select certain areas. But for now, this is the introduction. One more thing I want to say, you do have you can use alpha mattes too, remember that. So let's say I have my whales, And then I'll have my clouds on the bottom this time. Sorry, okay. And I'll make a new shape layer, and in order to do that I can right click, new shape layer, or go up to layer, new shape layer. I'm gonna drag this square. Let's do a circle. So drag my circle, and then I can use this as the alpha matte instead of Luma. Remember, I can just go up to here and do alpha matte. Now my whale is inside of the circle. I could animate my circle as well. That's one thing that we haven't really covered, but I could animate the position of my circle to reveal certain parts of my footage. If you're more interested in doing something like this, you're welcome to explore the alpha mattes.